right, first up, the National Petroleum Authority has said that it has frozen the application of the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy on petrol, diesel, and a kilogram of LPG for 2 months. This should mean that for the next 2 months, there will not be the application of 16 pesos per litre on petrol, 14 pesos on diesel, and 14 pesos on a kilogram of LPG. Yes, the full statement to show you this afternoon. It says the National Petroleum Authority wishes to inform the general public that His Excellency the President, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has granted approval to zero the price stabilization and recovery levies on petrol, diesel, and LPG for a period of 2 months. The above approval follows the advice of the MPA to the Minister of Energy to seek government's intervention to mitigate the impact of rising prices of petroleum products on the world market on consumers. It goes on to say that prices of crude oil and refined petroleum products have seen sharp increases on the world market due to the rise in demand of oil globally without a corresponding increase in supply, particularly from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies. Because pricing of petroleum products in Ghana is deregulated, changes in prices of petroleum products on the world market have a direct impact on prices at the pumps. The statement says the outlook of prices on the global market shows an upward trend, and therefore there was the need to seek government's intervention to lower the levies to cushion consumers from feeling the full impact of these rising prices. The purpose of the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy is to stabilize the prices for consumers and pay for the subsidies on premixed fuel and residual fuel oil. At this time, it is important that the PSRL, which is currently 16 pesos per litre on petrol, 14 pesos per litre on diesel, and 14 pesos per kilogram on LPG, are zero to cushion consumers. It concludes by saying that the MPA will work with the Ministries of Energy and Finance to quicken the legislative processes to give immediate effect to this directive by the President. So Duncan Amwa is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. He joins us with reaction to this. So scrapping the price stabilization and recovery levies for 2 months, Duncan, good start. If you can hear me, Duncan, is this a good start?
Darrell, yes, I can hear you, and this is a commendable start. What we've been asking for all the while. Fortunately, this will not be enough to cushion Ghanaians. If not, this is something welcoming. The only thing we would be pleading with the President is to further look at the Finance Ministry and the...
Okay, we have trouble with Duncan's network. We'll try and rectify that and hopefully speak to him perhaps on phone. But Duncan Amwa there, he is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, picking reaction from him to MPA's announcement of the removal of the PSRL for 2 months. We'll get back to him on that subject. Now, the Cybersecurity Authority will be engaging 200 companies in the country that have been designated as having crucial information systems likely to be exposed to cyber attacks. The Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Esther Osei-Kuffour, has disclosed that these firms in the sectors of finance, mining, and industry have been alerted to take steps to implement the preventive measures in the Cybersecurity Act that was passed in 2020. Speaking to Joy Business, Acting Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Entriboisa, could disclose that the authority will register and support these companies to adhere to the directives.
Certain gaps that we had within our criminal justice system, of which the Cybersecurity Act has basically addressed. But essentially, the Cybersecurity Authority, as part of the Cybersecurity Act, has come to provide that fundamental legal framework by which cybersecurity activities in this country can be conducted.
I heard the minister spoke about some 188 CIIs, which she has served directive to, or she has served letters to. Tell us what your engagement has been with them in aid to protect the critical infrastructure.
I think really the minister's action is grounded in law. Section 35, subsection 1, mandate the minister to designate sectors, but also critical information infrastructure owners and associated systems. So what has been done now is the designation of those systems. So subsequently, a notification has gone to close to 200 institutions across 13 sectors that the minister mentioned, and that forms the first legal process for the identification. Now, authority, which has been outdoor today, has a mandate to do the registration. In other words, what authority is going to do is engage with those designated critical information infrastructure owners, sit down with them, explain the rationale of the process, and register them. In other words, if you are a financial institution, there may be 2 or 3 critical systems that is run the banking infrastructure. Those systems are going to be registered, and following that, the authority will support with the implementation of the directive which the minister also launched.
Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, Dr. Albert Nchibuisi there. So usually when we talk about cyber attacks, the focus is on companies, but the big ones actually, but small businesses are vulnerable too, and there's actually no target too small. But how can small businesses become resilient? Joining me is CEO of Global Secure Solutions, Adam Glyman. Thanks very much for your time and great to see you once again. Just how vulnerable are small businesses?
Good afternoon, Darryl. So last year, small businesses were about 43% of all global cyber attacks. That has been a significant increase. What we should realize is that as the bigger companies are becoming more protected by implementing more expensive security defense technologies, it's leaving the lower hanging fruit, which are the smaller companies, which obviously can't compete in the same market for the skill sets and for the kind of technology that they need to protect themselves. So they are quite vulnerable when you look at the whole scheme of things.
And so how can these business owners then protect their businesses?
It's really a tough spot that they're in. They need to be able to leverage advanced tools, because it's become very obvious that with the new threats and the evolving landscape, the traditional tools cannot withstand these defenses or cannot withstand these attacks. So I think leadership in these organizations or institutions need to look at forward-thinking protection from a governance and risk perspective, and also partner with stakeholders in the community like cybersecurity service providers to augment that missing gap in their processes and in security operations, to be able to identify, detect, and respond to incidents and deal with them before it becomes too late or causes more damage than it should actually do.
And just how expensive is this to implement? Because I figure, and I may be wrong, that most small businesses do not add that to their budget because perhaps they think that it's expensive to have the security system in place, which is for their good anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a small cybersecurity, small and medium business report on cybersecurity that actually advises firms to use at least 3% of their budget and stash it away for cybersecurity related projects. It's not a joke, though. Cybersecurity solutions and products are very expensive. Even to man a cybersecurity department, just the salaries of the professionals is hard to even manage. Then compare that to adding tools and frameworks and policies and having audits and stuff like that. So what we have done as a cybersecurity service provider is come up with a service called Prometheus Shield, which is a managed cybersecurity service, which is actually geared towards these small companies so that we can provide these services to them at scale so that they don't need to really invest so much into their own protection, but we can actually provide that basis of managing their cybersecurity needs, providing that detection and response capability for them so that they can focus on the business and we can focus on the security of their organizations. We're also having a webinar on the 4th of November, and the topic is building business and cyber resilience in the new normal. So they would learn so much from this if they're able to register for that event.
I'd like to ask you this very last question, and that was our top story, in fact, this afternoon, having to do with about 200 firms identified as being at risk and designated as being at risk by the Communications Ministry. You heard the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority talk about that. And this month, we're highlighting cybersecurity. Just how challenging is this for us, do you think, and are we able to navigate?
It's a new place we are. I think we're definitely on the verge of a new era in terms of looking at the government and the industry stakeholders, the providers, law, the legal aspects of it. It's really monumental, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be put in from everyone's perspective. It's going to be challenging, but I think the Act actually has certain mandates or certain areas where it accommodates for this stakeholder engagement and brainstorming to help fill the gaps that might seem apparent right now. But in all truth and honesty and fairness, as an industry player, this is something that I think is very welcome. It's definitely going to help the industry and ultimately help these critical information infrastructure organizations, because at least now there's a baseline that they can follow to meet the minimum requirements. It's usually the organizations in the banking and financial services which have all the compliance and regulatory requirements where everything is really laid out that says that you need to do A, B, and C to protect your critical information. And this is something that we didn't have before for these CIIs. And so this is very good news. I think work needs to be done from a stakeholder engagement point of view, but we're definitely going to get there eventually.
We're definitely going to get the CEO of Global Secure Solutions, Adam Glyman. Thanks very much for your time. Back to our top story this afternoon, to do with the NPA's announcement of the removal of the price stabilization and recovery levy on fuel products, petrol, diesel, and a kilogram of LPG. Joining us is Mohammed Abdul Kudus, who is head of communications at the Corporate Affairs Division of the NPA. Great to have you on our program. What's informing this move, sir? All right, we don't have Mohammed yet, but we can speak with Duncan Amwa, who is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, who is on the phone with us. So I was asking you what you made of this announcement by the NPA, Duncan.
Indeed, this is a welcoming development. We've been asking for the price stabilization and recovery levy to be removed all this while. The only downside is the NPA failing to indicate when this reduction is taking effect. We were expecting that it was going to be a communique directing the various oil marketing companies to immediately, with effect from today, reduce the stabilization and recovery levy. Being that as it may, we still feel that Mr. President would need to also look at the finance ministry and look at the pricing build-up completely or thoroughly. You are getting into a season where prices are simply going to go up again and again and again. The 14 to 16 pesos reduction could only suffice for the very last increment we have seen, which was just the past 6-7 days when we saw pump prices go up by between 12 and 14 pesos. And so if you just left it to only price stabilization and recovery levy reduction, we'll be back to the same squares in no time at all, because prices are going to go up again in the next 6 to 7 days. And we think that the more significant thing to do at this point will be to reduce some of the overbearing taxes on the price build-up. When I talk of taxes, I'm specific. Taxes that were imposed when crude prices were below $30. In 2016, the then government felt, well, we had a revenue projection of our crude exports at $56, $54. Unfortunately, crude has tumbled or dropped to about $30 at the time. So to make up for the gap, government at the time introduced a tax on the price build-up core special petroleum tax of 46 pesos a litre. Unfortunately, as I speak to you this morning, prices of crude has gone above $84 per barrel. Government in 2021 budget projected $57.8. And so government is simply making so much revenue from our petroleum exports. Therefore, it is our expectation that there will be some attempts to mitigate the hardship that these increases is bringing onto all of us by reducing those taxes that were introduced when crude was $30, i.e., the special petroleum tax of 46 pesos. If government also is minded, another tax that was recently introduced, which duplicates an existing tax, the energy sector levy of 46 pesos. We recently added another tax of 20 pesos called energy sector levy of 20 pesos. If you added just the two, you are looking at almost 66 pesos that we can slash off. The UPPF PDM margins could equally be looked at and consolidate them so that you can actually reduce them by some 5 pesos. If you do these things, I do not see how Ghanaians cannot get a sustainable reduction of over 70 pesos every litre. The 14-16 is good, but woeful if you ask.
On the question of when this will be implemented, the MPA in the statement said it will work with the Ministries of Energy and Finance to quicken the legislative processes to give immediate effect to the directive by the President. And so what timelines are we looking at? Mohammed Abdul Kudus is Head of Communication and Corporate Affairs Division of the MPA. Hopefully you have some answer for us. And so how long should we expect this to go on before we get a reflection of the reduction, Mohammed? Or the removal of the stabilization and recovery levies? Can you hear me?
So, forgive me, like the statement rightly put it, there's supposed to be a certain process so we can have the effect actually felt at the pump. As you are aware, it is something that Parliament will also have to have a review and okay the promise that has actually been made by government. This is an intention that government has expressed to all of us. I believe the delight goes to everybody across the consuming sphere, including myself and yourself. We only would do the implementation when the communication is finally sent to us that it has actually been reviewed. As we speak, the communication has not come to us that it has been okayed for us to really take it out of the equation in the price buildup. So when the determination is made, we would actually feature that. And as you know, the pricing window is twice a month, the 1st to 15th, which has already been determined. So if we have the communication given to us, hopefully before close of 15th, the second window of pricing from 16th of this month, we probably should be able to have a feel of it at the pump.
Well, I can tell you that consumers are anxious. I got a couple of people asking me, when is this going to take effect? And so they are really anxious about it. But you heard Duncan talk about sustainable prices going forward. I mean, after 2 months, what happens? We're going back to the normal prices as are reflected on the world market?
So if we are minded by our mandate, we implement what is actually given to us. The determination of what should be slapped on the price buildup is not within our remit. So we only implement what is communicated. Government has expressed the intention. We're hoping that the processes will be completed so we just can't implement it. At our place, we do the implementation. Not having to speak for government and probably adding my voice to what Duncan talked about is good. And anything that would bring a reprieve at the pump is good. But I think that for government to also be able to feel the anxiety out there and seemingly empathize with all of us, I think it is equally welcoming. So, like you said, it is good enough, but probably what they do at their place, they're advocating for more. As and when the determination is done and communication is sent to us, we would implement.
Yes, I get your point, but I'm sure you're also looking at the interests of consumers as well. If I remember, a couple of weeks ago, your boss was talking about how consumers need to also be protected in these times that the fuel prices are going up. I was just trying to get your thoughts on how you think that going forward, in the long term, the various stakeholders can work together to ensure that the consumer is cushioned, seeing what is happening on the international market.
Yes, I get you and I agree with you. And that's what I'm trying to say, that we should be minded by what actually is our mandate. Because till July 2015, we had an input in the determination of price. But right now, as it is a deregulated market out there, that it is the forces of demand and supply that basically determines how much should be sold at the pump. And we're all aware that it has been the excess demand over supply that has actually been pushing the prices on the global market upwards. Unfortunately, because of the deregulated environment that we operate, anytime there is a movement on the price at the world market, there is a direct impact or relation to the consuming public in Ghana. We only try to regulate to ensure that it's a win-win situation. So consumers are not shortchanged or probably given something far more than it is expected to be paid. And then there should be a certain return on investment for the businesses that actually are into the fuel business. So that is basically what we do. So if I'm going to talk about what NPA can do, it is as though we have a role to play in the determination of what margin is put, what levy is put, or what tax is put out there. We can't do that. But obviously, we go out there to do the monitoring. We try to ensure that our prices are within the expected brackets. And those things we would do it to our best possible best, so that we always can guarantee that suppliers go out there and get something worth their money.
I'll just give the last words to Duncan Amwa. So you had Mohammed Abdul Kudus there. So after 2 months, I mean, we revert to the same old prices. There's little they can do actually in, I mean, convincing or, you know, sort of influencing what's happening on the markets. What's the way forward?
The way forward is in ensuring that the 2022 budget gets quite a significant reduction in the tax levels. Once that is done, like I indicated, we would be able to sustain and manage fuel prices for Ghanaians. The stabilization and recovery levy reduction is good, but it would probably be on ad hoc basis, considering that it's going to last just for 2 months. And so if within the months of October, November, and by December, prices are still going up, we're going to enforce the stabilization again, and Ghanaians will probably pay even much more than they probably would have been comfortable with. So let's look at the finance minister, let's look at the ministry's budget for 2022, and let's see how the president could again intervene to ensure that the taxes, overbearing taxes, some of which were introduced when crude prices were quite low, do not continue to exist to be charged against Ghanaians. If we don't do these things, we will be only window dressing the situation while people continue to complain about fuel prices at the pump. Like I said, it could go up again in 2 weeks or in a matter of 7 days. Once that comes, it's going to wipe out the 14 pesos that we are giving out today. Then we are back to the same squares. But there is a more sustainable way to handle this, and that will be through the Finance Ministry's 2022 budget. We will be pleading with Mr. President to intervene again to ensure that at least something more significant is given to Ghanaians going forward.
Thank you very much. We have to end it here. Mohammed Abdul Kudus, Head of Communications at the NPA, also Duncan Amwa, Executive Secretary of COPEC Ghana. Thanks for your time. You're watching The Marketplace. We'll be right back. update from France as we wrap up. President Akufo-Addo's Ghana Beyond Aid was magnified at the just ended New Africa-France Summit at Montpellier. Interactions from civil society and entrepreneurs from Africa with French President Emmanuel Macron echoed President Akufo-Addo's resolve for world powers to move away from aid to trade. We'll be bringing you more from the French ambassador to Ghana, Anne-Sophie Ave, in subsequent bulletins. Thanks for watching. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.